Hi everybody, this is Tracy Kryling and we are taping So Fun for August today. Well, never mind, that doesn't matter. We are back in the stores last week, and so you are still able to see it online for a while, so hopefully y'all enjoyed today. So we are going to start with a few notions. We have these great little tools. They're for cleaning your sewing machines. So you should clean your sewing machine about every 8 to 10 hours of sewing. If you're using minky fabrics or flannel, which I did a few quilts this time that are minky and flannel, you need to clean a little bit more. These are great little tools. They're little tiny brushes. They're very flexible on the end. And you can get in and clean out all those little crevices and things on your sewing machine that just the dirt builds up and doesn't make your sewing machine behave so well. So use these and it will keep your machine clean longer. And then sometimes you're sewing on the go. I had a lot of bindings to do this month, and I was literally sewing at a few different parties we were at. This little case called Stay Sharp, there's 3 different ones, 3 different styles, are magnetic case. So you can get some needles, pins, all the little accessories that you need when you're going to be sewing on the go. And they're a nice little case that you can keep in your car, in your purse, in your to-go bag, so that you can always have something to work on if you need to. This little doodad is Featherweight thread grabber. So it's great for grabbing threads, pulling ribbon through things, elastic through things, all that. It holds everything really well. You just grab it and pull it through. Another little nifty notion we have this time is when you go to classes, everybody has the same stuff. We all have these. We all have scissors. These little doodahs, I don't know what they're called, scissor keepers. They're magnetic, and they just go on your scissors, and it kind of marks it as yours. So there's 3 in a pack. There's 3 different colors, and then you know whose scissors are yours when you go to class, which is always nice to come home with your own supplies. I did some ruler work quilting this month for So Fun, so we have a couple of books I'll show you in a little bit, and we have some rulers here. So we ordered in these 2 sets of rulers. One is circles and a long straight edge ruler, and then we have these wave rulers. They're by Amanda Murphy. These are for your long arm quilting machine, but even if you have a domestic quilting machine, as long as you have a ruler foot, you can use these. You will just use them on the front and sides of your ruler foot, not towards the back, which is kind of awkward to do it that way anyway. So these will still work on your long arm or on your regular domestic sewing machine. You do have to have a ruler foot for them. Bernina has her own ruler foot. Pfaff has a ruler foot that fits all of the newer machines. The other brands, you can get a generic ruler foot that will fit your machine. You need to know if it's a high shank or a low shank, and you can use these rulers. So I'll show you that in a little bit, but we do have the rulers here for you, 2 different sets. When you're doing ruler work, these rulers are nice. They have some grippy stuff on the back, so they hold pretty well to your fabric. But Handy Quilter has these things called Handy Grip, and they are basically kind of like Velcro strips, and they are super grippy. They're kind of measured on the back. Take off a little square, put it onto the back of your ruler, and it holds the ruler onto your fabric really, really well. What's great is once you take them off the paper backing, they are clear. You can still see all the lines that are on this ruler through the little squares. So they're just really great. And they work really, really well. They hold all your rulers down. They're also good if you have your cutting rulers. You can use these. They work better than those little sandpaper dots we used to use. So they're great little project or things to have in your sewing room. And sometimes it's kind of hard to hold the ruler down with your fingers. You don't want to get too close to the feet and sew through your fingers or anything. Trust me on that one. So we have this little guy, it's called Eversewn, and it's just a little tiny ruler gripper. So it fits on there, then you can hold this down, instead of trying to hold with your fingers and have your fingers go bigger. So just kind of a nice little another gadget to use. And then you guys have seen this many times before. This is Quilter Select Free Fuse by Alice Anderson. Really cool stuff. I use this on all the table runners this time. You lay your batting down, sprinkle this on the batting, iron the backing onto this. Then you flip that over, lay your batting, the backing down, the batting on top, sprinkle this again, and you iron on the top of your table runner, and then you're ready to quilt it. It holds it all together. It's a little easier than using spray stuff because you don't have all the overspray, and it works really, really well. Love this stuff. So I did use that on all of my smaller things that I quilted this month. So we might not have all this in all of the stores, but we can order it if it's not in stock. So that's all of the little notions that I have that are just kind of things hanging out. So we're going to go over to this Oesd stuff that we have this month. We're getting a really good deal on some Oesd freestanding lace packages. So we have a train station, a police station, a little post office with a little tiny mailbox, and how cute is this? It even has a little flag on it. Then we have a nice little Christmas tree. Really cute little bridge. And these flowers are from the Freestanding Lace bouquet. So we have a nice big mum, I believe. Two little tiny roses. This one was done with variegated thread, and it just looks really cool. So these are all from Oesd. They are a packet you can get. I don't remember the price, but it was a really, really good deal for all of these projects together. We also have a snowman that you can do. So some of these were made by the girls in Aurora. The snowman was made by Terry, and we'll show you a picture of that in a little bit. But how cute is this little bridge? So when you do these Oesd freestanding lace designs, they have these little buttons that you pull through to hold all the projects together. So it's really just ingenious the way they do it. There is a special tool for pulling these together, but you can use the little thread pullers that I showed you just a minute ago, about the same thing, and they would work just fine for that too. So they're great little designs. Freestanding lace is just amazing the way it all works within your embroidery machine. There is a little bit of fabric underneath some of the lace, so it looks like actual shingles and everything on your roof, but really cool little things. Okay, this next project that we have is this square neck top, very original name, but it's a nice little top made with a square neck. I always thought they're a little more challenging to sew, so I thought I'd wanted to try it. Piece of cake to make this top. It comes in size extra small through 7X, so it'll fit just about anybody. Tells you your measurements, so just make sure you go by your measurements, not what you wear and ready to wear. What's nice is it has pattern pieces for making it with a woven or a knit, so basically you're getting two patterns. And it's kind of a crop top, little not wearing a crop top, so I made mine a little bit longer, but it turned out really cute. So this is it. So I think I said I made a medium, but it turned out really nice. This is kind of a loosely woven fabric. I'm not even sure what it is, but really easy to make. The darts did not come out quite where they needed to be, like anywhere near where they needed to be. So I just kind of totally took those out, which doesn't matter. You don't really notice it at all. That's a little dolman sleeve. So you have front piece, front facing, back facing, and that's it. That's all it takes. Put a little bit of interfacing on your facings and you're ready to go. Nice little fast project. If you're going to make it a little bit longer, you could even do a little vent on the side, but I didn't, but a really cute little fast project. So this next project that we have is by Pickle Pie Designs. It's in the hoop embroidery, and it's just a nice little pin cushion. So these would be great to make for all your sewing buddies for Christmas. This took, the embroidery part of this, like 15 minutes or so. So you put your fabric in the hoop. The directions are all in here. It's a disc that you get. Put your stabilizer in the hoop, put your fabric down. It sews out this little thing. It says pins. It sews this gold around it. Everything is done in the hoop. You do have to sew the top part of the pin cushion on by hand onto here, but not a big deal. They tell you to sew this back seam by hand. I did not sew that by hand. I just used my sewing machine. I put a little bit of Peltex in the bottom of it to hold it up straight. Then a little bit of those poly pellets in it so it would give it a little bit of body. And then we have these ground walnut shells with lavender scent. That goes in the top with a little bit of stuffing so that you can sharpen your pins a little bit when they're in there. And it's a nice little pin cushion. So really about 15 minutes to do it, the embroidery part, a few minutes to sew the top part on by hand, and you're ready to go. This next project that I have was also an embroidery project by Amy Lee Scott. She's the one that does all of the edge-to-edge quilting in your hoop designs, and it's this nice table runner. Love how it turned out. I did it all with metallic threads. All the embroidery is done with metallic threads. So there are 3 different blocks in this table runner. Actually 4, 5. Okay, there's a lot of different blocks in this table runner. So you embroider 2 Christmas trees, 2 round ornaments, and 2 long ornaments. You sew all those pieces together, and then you do also these blocks. And then to do the quilting, I use my fast fuse, put it all together. And these Christmas presents here are how you do your quilting. So it's all quilted in the hoop. I did do stitch in the ditch around the whole thing. You want to do that first. It's going to hold it together better. Great directions on how to line it all up, but it went perfectly. There are also some other embroidery designs you can get to quilt around the tree and all the ornaments. I used metallic threads in all of it. The metallic threads I used were Madeira. You can get them in a long tube from our stores. Usually it's about $109 value. We have it on sale for $30. So you get lots of different threads. I think it's 30 different threads in there for $30. But a really, really good price. But it just turned out really cute, very easy. The Christmas tree blocks took about 10 minutes, and that was both of them together. All of it, the whole thing took about maybe an hour to do. So a great little fast project. Now, one thing with that, she tells you to cut all of your squares out and then to cut all of your stabilizer out and fuse them together. It would be a whole lot easier to cut out one long strip of fabric for your squares and one long strip of stabilizer, fuse it together, and then cut it apart. Much easier and much faster. So this next project we have it's by Pink Sand Beach Designs. It's a backpack, and I love Pink Sand Beach design patterns. They're great directions, and they always turn out really cute. So here's the backpack. It's a little smaller than I like. I like bigger backpacks, but this works really nicely. It has a nice little zipper back here, so you can have easy access to a few things. The straps are there, a nice long strap here. You could make this a little bit longer so you could carry it around like that. They don't make these back straps adjustable, and I do like them adjustable, so I did have to go get extra hardware just for that, but not a big deal. We ordered in a whole pack of hardware for you. It comes with all the hardware you need to make it except for the adjustable strap thing. So I just went over to Tree Lotta, got a few adjustable strap slider thingies, and finished the whole backpack. There are pockets on the front and back inside, so you can keep things a little bit organized inside. There are snaps here on the sides, so it's kind of makes it small if you don't have a lot of stuff in there, or open it up and it's all big. Snap on the front so it keeps closed. The back pocket, zipper pocket on the back, like I said. You put a little Peltex in the bottom, which we ordered some of that in for you, so that it's a nice sturdy bottom. They have you use for stabilizer Decor Bond, SF101 by Pellin, 987 Fusible Fleece by Pellin, and then this Peltex. I did not use Decor Bond at all. I used 987 Fusible Fleece on the sides, the back, and the flap. And on all the pockets, I just use SF101. And it stands up just fine all by itself. It works out just perfect. So you don't need the Decor Bond. I just use SF101 in my handles, and it's perfect. But I think it turned out really nice. It's very easy to make. It took one evening to cut it and fuse it and everything, and then a couple of hours to sew the whole thing up. So really good directions, and it was not hard to make at all. And now I have another new backpack. Okay, so now we're going to clear off the table a little bit and get all these stands out of here and show you the quilt show. I kind of did a lot of quilts this month. It wasn't necessarily planned, but some fabric came in at the last minute, and it was really pretty, and I really liked it. So I'm like, sure, I'll make a few more quilts. So we'll show you those too. So this first little wall hanging quilt is called Featherweight by Heine. We've done some of her stuff before. We did a reindeer last year. She has a really cool truck. So this time it's the Featherweight. And here's the quilt. I just love this. I have a little Featherweight. A friend gave it to me, and it's just so cool. They're great for taking to classes. You guys all know what Featherweights are, but really cute little machines. When this came in, I really wanted to do it. So there are some companies out there that take your Featherweight and paint them with really cool colors, and I thought that'd be so neat to do that with a really bright red one or something, but everybody's like, no, you have to make it like a Featherweight. So Terry actually made this one. So you round up a bunch of tone on tone with words or sayings or flowers and something, background fabrics. Then you have lots of flowers here that you make look like they're sewing a quilt. Add a few flower decorations. I love how it actually shows you have thread here coming down and sewing on the quilt. Just a really cute little project. Nice little wall hanging you can put in your room. But I just love all these little Heine projects. They're just so pretty. So here's the Featherweight. Thank you, Terry, for letting me use yours. Then we're going to show you a few of these flannel quilts. So this is a big bundle of fabric that came in kind of at the last minute. It's a fat quarter bundle from Maywood Studios, and it's called Snow Days. So lots of different fat quarters, and there was one panel in it which we knew about. Then there was actually a bonus panel. So this was the first quilt I made. This was 12 snowman heads all sewn together in rows of threes. Cut it apart. I put some sashing in between them and put it all back together and made a nice little lap quilt. I kind of did, this was part of the border of the snowman panel, and I did this to match the boardwalk quilt that I made. So it has that going across the top and the bottom. So this is all flannel. Flannel is not hard to sew. It's just fuzzy, really fuzzy. So you have to clean your machine more often. And then to add to the fuzzies, I put minky on the back of all three of these flannel quilts. It's just so nice and soft. I got it out at High Prairie Quilts. They have 90-inch wide minky. So I bought, I don't remember how many yards, but I got all of these together out of a little bit of minky fabric and one fat quarter panel packet. So this is one of the quilts I made. This next one I did is called Beach Walk, and you guys know I love the beach. Haven't been to one in a while, but I do love the beach. This is a nice little panel quilt. It's by Villa Rosa Designs. Love their patterns. They're like less than $3 to make this little tiny quilt, and they're super fast. They go together really easily. And this is the panel that came in the Fat Quarter Pack. So how cute are these guys? All these snowmans. And then you add just some flying geese blocks around the top and bottom, put a few borders on it, and you have a really nice quilt out of just a panel. So if you have some people that you decide at the last minute to make some gifts for, just grab a few panels, a little bit of border fabrics, and put it together. This panel was a lot longer than the directions called, say. So just measure your panel and cut your border fabrics that long, and you'll still be good to go. It doesn't matter, doesn't have to be exact. It will still work out perfectly no matter what size your panel is. When I cut these flying geese blocks apart, they have you take one big square or rectangle, so 2 squares of your background fabric onto the edges of it, fold it and flip it up, and then you have your flying geese triangle here. But you have these really big triangle squares that you have left over, half square triangles. So I kept all of those. And what I did was when I did my first seam from corner to corner, I measured out another 1/2 inch and did another seam, and I'll show you what I'm going to make with those in a little bit. So here is the panel quilt, the boardwalk quilt from my Snowman pack of fabrics. Then we have one more quilt from there. This book is called Patchwork or Turnabout Patchwork. So there are simple quilts with a twist. So they're normal blocks that you would make, and you can kind of twist them around and get different designs from it. So the ones I really liked, this quilt is really cool. It's kind of a small picture. You make 2 different blocks. The way you put them together and cut them apart, you end up with 2 quilts. So that's really great. 2 quilts, 1 sewing project, way to go. So that's a really nice bonus there. Then this Houndstooth Quilt is that one. I'll show you that in a little bit. And this one is the one I made. This is all my markers to keep track of the rows I was sewing. So we'll get rid of those. And that's the quilt. So again, you're taking a square of fabric. So these are 5-inch squares, so I just cut my back quarter into 5-inch squares. And this isn't going to go well. Then you sew a little triangle or a little square onto the corner of it and lay them out right, and you get this really cool quilt. So another nice lap quilt that you can use, at Christmas time, or any time in that season. Again, they were stitch and flip on the corners. So when I sewed my corners here, so my little square onto the big square, I drew a line from corner to corner. I actually used my cluck cluck sew diagonal tape to do it with, and then I drew another line 1/2 inch away from that, so I have an extra triangle there. But a nice quilt out of that book. Did not take long to make this. I actually cut up all the 5-inch squares I could get out of the scraps from that panel pack, so my quilt is a little bit bigger than the directions in the book, but it's always good to use up your scraps. So, and I did piece my minky on the back so I could use it without having to buy more fabric. It's 90 inches wide. None of my quilts were 90 wide, so I just did a piece on the back, and I have 3 quilts out of 1 purchase of minky fabric. So with all of the scraps that I have from the half square triangle scraps that I have, I have this big bag of scraps that are all already in half square triangles. So I'm going to make them into another quilt. So you'll see that at the stores when you're coming, or we'll post that up on Facebook when I get it done. I still have a few scraps left over, so I will incorporate that into this, and we'll get at least one more quilt out of all these scraps, which is great. So you can definitely get 3 quilts out of one fat quarter pack, maybe 4 or 5. Okay, so this next quilt is a table runner, actually, not a quilt. It's called Buffalo Lodge by Krista Moser. Love her patterns. Really cute stuff. A few months ago, I did So Fun, and we did a quilt with the 60-degree diamond ruler. Well, now we have the 60-degree mini diamond ruler. So my daughter moved out, has her own apartment, and I said, do you want some table runners? She's like, yes. So I showed her this. She's like, oh yeah, I love that. So I made her a longer version of the table runner. They use only 3 of these trees, and I used 5. So this is Nori's new table runner. Big thing with this, when you're using this ruler, it's a Creative Grids ruler, so what's nice is it does have the sticky stuff on the back, so when you lay it down on your fabric, it doesn't move around too much. It has markings here, so you can do hexagons, trapezoids, parallelograms, triangles, all of those fun things you learned in geometry and thought you'd never use anymore. You need that stuff. So here's a ruler for it. But when you're making this, it's all on the bias. Every single piece of fabric is on the bias. So I used lots of Terrial Magic, sprayed this stuff like crazy, so that all of the points would come out. Did a fairly decent job with all the points, but not totally, don't look too close. But I think it turned out really cute. It was a little challenging to make because you have long rows of lots of bias stuff going together, but lots of pins, comes out okay. And then I just did straight line quilting with my ruler in the ditch on these triangles, and it looks really cool. Nora should love it, I hope. But really not a hard project. It just takes a little bit of time because you're working with lots of bias pieces. But it turned out really cool and looks good. Okay, so this next quilt I'm going to show you is one of my favorites. I did post it in our Rocky Mountain Sewing VIP group, is this Tulip Quilt. She did her tulips in pinks, which all tulips are pinks, and tulips are in pinks and reds generally. But I like blue, and I think blue tulips would be just beautiful. And they don't have blue tulips. There are purple tulips, and they've tried to hybrid or combine them or whatever it is, and get some blue ones, and they keep turning out purple. So there are no blue tulips. So I made my own. So this is the quilt in the book. I did not put these corner sashing squares in it because I just thought it didn't really add anything to the quilt. So I just left those out. So I just did little sashing squares because you still need something in that area. So I just did little sashing squares to match the whole background of the quilt, and it turned out just perfect still. So this is my quilt. It is not quite done because I decided to do ruler work on it, and ruler work takes forever, like forever. But it looks really cool when you get it done, so it's worth it. So I did use our new Amanda Murphy rulers. So I used this wavy one to do the top parts of my tulip centers here. You just move it down. And then I also used it for the tulips that have hearts in them. So there are 3 different kinds of tulips here. Some of them are solid. These are pieced to have a heart in them. And then this one here is all patchwork. So 3 different ones. I kind of made these look like a little more like a heart, rounded here. Did some straight line with the straight line ruler, straight line quilting across the tulips. What's great with these rulers is they have all these markings. So you can do 45-degree angles and 90-degree angles or straight lines. So you just put it on here and move your quilt frame or your fabric. They're clear. So when I was doing my quilting down this line, I was lining my last row, stitching up on this line, so you can keep straight, know where you're going and all that. So that really helps a lot with these. And then don't forget, I put the Handy Quilter grippy stuff on the back so it holds onto your quilt really well and doesn't move too much. So great little tools, but it just takes forever. So I did not quite get it all quilted. It will be quilted before I do it in person at the store. But I think it's turning out really lovely, and I just love the blue tulips. So we have a couple of Amanda Murphy books here for you on ruler work quilting so that you can get some ideas. So she shows you what ruler you use and then how you can use it to fill in things. So you use the wave ruler to do these little designs in the patchwork, and then you can fill it in with some other designs here. So lots of great ideas on what to do with her rulers and how to make your quilts look amazing with them. So really cool designs here. So 2 different books on that. I like this one because it's flat. You can lay it out and watch it and look at it a little bit better. This one has how to do it on or directions on how to use your sewing machine or your long arm. Basically the same thing. You just have to make sure you have a ruler foot for either your sewing machine, your domestic machine, or your long arm. That's the only thing that you have to have. But lots of great ideas on how to use them, tips and tricks and everything on that. So we have those books here at the store for you. Okay, this next book is called Turnabout Patchwork by the Patchwork Place. It has some great quilts in it. I've done a few of these quilts for some baby projects that were made it really quick, some baby quilts for some twin baby boys being born. So this first quilt I'm going to show you out of here is a Houndstooth Quilt. So this book is in sections. This section is half square triangles and square blocks. So basically you're taking a big square, sewing it around the outside seam, the outside of the square, and then the way you cut it up, you can get lots of different blocks here, quilts and blocks here. So there's this one here. There's 3 Rose Garden Quilt, the Swirl Quilt, Diamond Star, and Houndstooth Quilt that you can get with one way of cutting out a block. So I did the Houndstooth Quilt. I've never made one, and I thought this would be kind of cool. So the way they have you do that, you take your big 2 squares, put them right sides together, sew around the edges of it, and then you cut it in all different ways, and that's how you get all your blocks. The problem with that is it's fast, but everything is on the bias. So again, lots of Terrio Magic, and Terrio Magic, if you don't know, is kind of a spray starch. Best Press is a great spray starch, but it's kind of a light starch. Terrio Magic is a very strong starch, and it's T-E-R-I-A-L, like material, but just Terrio Magic. So it's a big spray starch, really thick, and it makes your fabrics not be wavy when they're on the bias, so you can get these cool quilts like this Houndstooth Quilt. So really bright colors. This black sparkly fabric is called Little Black Dress. We have it at the Littleton store, and I just love it. I think it needs to be a purse soon also, and I have some scraps. So it'll probably become a purse. But I think it looks great with the pink. The Houndstooth really shows up really well. Just did some wavy line quilting with gray variegated thread just to give it a little bit of texture. I think that turned out really cute. Again, it is on the bias, so when you're making it, make sure everything is smooth. With this binding, I sewed it onto the front, flipped it to the back, and did it by hand, which is how most people do binding, but some of us are getting a little older, and it's hard to do that handwork anymore. So there are different ways you can do binding. So with all the flannel quilts I did, I also did it by hand, because with all of that thickness of the minky and the flannel and the batting, it's really thick and it's just easier to do it by hand. The Tulip Quilt, when I get around to doing that binding, I'm going to do it with this piped binding look. So what you do with this is take a 1 5/8 inch strip of the orange, which is going to be the piping, a 1 3/8 inch strip of the yellow, which is going to be the binding part. Sew it together, press it towards the smaller piece, which is the binding piece. Then you will sew it onto the front, onto the back of the quilt. Sew it onto the back of the quilt, and you'll see the pipe side up. You'll flip it around to the front, stitch in the ditch in the piping area, and it looks like you have a piped binding. So that's another great way to do your binding. So I already showed you the Tulip Quilt out of the Celebrate the Seasons from Pat Sloan. She has a really cute snowman or pumpkin quilt in here. A really nice little sailboat quilt, which is just really cute. Some fall stuff. Here's a sailboat. So lots of different quilts. There's 14 quilts and companion projects. So some pillows that go along with the quilts. So with the Tulip quilt, there was a few little table toppers and quilt or pillows you can make. But my favorite quilt in this book is this Nordic Snowflake. It's all made with 1.5-inch strips. This blue metallic-y fabric I got at our Rocky Mountain Littleton store. I had this background fabric from a little while ago. This was not hard to make. It's all strip piecing. So you just cut up a few thousand 1.5-inch strips of blue and white fabric, and then you start sewing them together. You do it in strip sets. So this is strip A, this is strip B, or something like that. I put all of those strip sets into little, well, big baggies, because one of these was like 206 pieces that you had to, strip sets that you had to make. So you have a whole lot of strips, you cut them into 1.5-inch pieces, label it, put it in a baggie, do your next strip set, and then when you start sewing it together, you sew A to C and E to J, and it goes from A through P, different strip sets, and you get this incredibly gorgeous quilt. So you already saw a sneak peek of it. If you are a member of our Rocky Mountain Sewing and Vacuum VIP Facebook group, I posted this when I was working on it, and then I posted it when it was all done because I was just so excited how it turned out, and I wanted to show everybody early before you get to sew fun. So the really cool thing about this, besides the way the quilt looks, is the way I did the binding on it. So Floriani has some new thread out. It's fusible thread, which is not a new thing. It's been out for a while. And people have said you could use fusible thread to do your binding. And it never made sense to me because you just had one little piece of thread on the back when you sew it on your sewing machine. And it just never really held well enough to sew the binding to the front of the quilt, flip it over to the back, fuse it down with that thread, and then you just stitch the ditch across the top here. So some ladies were at the store. They both bought the new Pfaff Air 5000 Air Thread Serger, and they took classes, and they are quilters. I'm like, why are you guys, not that you can't use a quilter, or quilter can't use a serger, but I know they only do quilts, and I'm like, so why do you guys have sergers? You use this fusible fleece in your serger, in the lower looper of your serger, sew your binding on with your serger onto the front, you flip it to the back, you iron it down, and you have all of that thread on your back looper, the fabric irons to it, and then you stitch in the ditch, and it's perfect. So they told me this like 1.5 years ago. I'm like, I forgot how to do it. So you just sew it on the front. When you come to the end, you just take it off the serger, turn your project, kind of start 1/4 inch down, which is a little harder to do on your serger. You have to mark and kind of really look at what you're doing. Sew it all the way around, flip to the back, iron it. Ironing metallic threads is fun because it gets really hot and it really burns your fingers a lot. But you iron it to the back. It holds it really, really well because it's fusible thread, and then on your serger you have a lot of thread on the back, and it holds it really well, and then you can stitch in the ditch on the front, and it looks like you did it by hand. So that is the coolest thing I learned this month, and so fun getting it ready for you. Besides, I hate 1.5-inch strips. I don't want to look at another 1.5-inch strip ever again. But I think the quilt turned out great. There is a wall hanging that when you're cutting up 260 of these little guys, why not just do the wall hanging too? Because I'm not going to try and do math and figure out what doesn't need to be in there. So I have a little wall hanging that's almost done also that matches one block. So love this new quilt. So the next one I'm doing is called the Equalizer. And I made it with this jelly roll from Moda by Sherry and Chelsea Fabrics. So this is a modern quilt. The Equalizer is supposed to look more like how when you're looking at music, you know, how it kind of vibrates, the music vibrates. So this is why it's called the Equalizer. So you take your jelly roll strips, cut them into different lengths. The pattern tells you how long to cut each one. You add a few 1.5 inch strips and 2 inch squares in between some of it, sew it together, and it looks great. You have enough of the jelly roll that you can do 2 different quilts with it, which is always nice. So 1 jelly roll, 2 quilts, not a bad thing. I have leftover fabric, so I could definitely easily make 1 more quilt with this. I quilted it with little swirls. Since it's all very straight lined, I quilted it with swirls. Looks pretty cool. I did the binding, sewed it onto the back, and flipped it to the front because I just wanted to really finish it up faster. I did add a little bit of solid fabrics in here because the pattern said to, but you don't need to. You have plenty of fabric. You don't even need to add in solids. You can just do it all with 1 jelly roll. So it looks really cool. I like it. I love the fabrics. I love Sherry and Chelsea's fabrics. It looks really nice. And this is a perfect quilt for the spring. Oh, so that's it. We're all done today. So hope you enjoyed my quilt show. Don't forget, you'll get sneak peeks of projects that we're doing. Plus, we'd love to see your projects. I know some of you are still not comfortable leaving your house. So you can post projects on our Rocky Mountain Sewing VIP Facebook group. It's really great. We're seeing lots of people posting their questions, your projects, everything. We love to see you, hear from you. Just get to know more people. It's really a lot of fun. And hopefully you'll all have already been into the store to see me in person. This will air after So Fun at the Store. But we miss you guys. Hope to see you soon. And thank you for watching.